Good evening, everyone. My name is Tamara DeRitter. I'm the chairwoman for Rose City Park Neighborhood Association. I'm here to welcome you to our May 2020 general membership meeting. This is our very first general membership meeting that we've attempted to conduct on Zoom and YouTube Live. So welcome. Please be patient with us as we work our way through this. The following is a brief outline of tonight's agenda. We will open with new business and public comment, and then hear the community safety update from Officer Bob Boylan, a member of the neighborhood response team for the city of Portland. Then we'll receive reports from our committees, an update on elections, our elections. The neighborhood will share neighbors will then share COVID-19 stories of hope, creativity, and strength. And then our invited speaker tonight is Multnomah County Chairwoman, Deborah Kafori. Before we get started, let's take a moment to recognize our community partners who help make events like this happen. Our gold sponsor is the German American Society. Our silver sponsors are the Albina Early Head Start, Basics Grocery, Fire on the Mountain, St. Rose of Lima Catholic Church and School, and PGE. Our bronze members are Karamuma Real Estate, Paper Jam, a digital and design company, TDR and Associates, a land use planning and public engagement firm. Let's give them a round of applause. Now, since this presentation platform is new to many of you, I want to let you know the process for participation. We are broadcasting to you live from the comfort of our own homes using Zoom platform. That live feed is also being transmitted to each of you via YouTube live feed. Only the board members and invited speakers have access to the Zoom platform, but that only means that the YouTube live participants will have to type their comments and questions into the comment line on YouTube feed. Ed Gorman and a couple of our other board members, Meg and Jay Griffith, will be watching the YouTube feed and relay your comments to the Zoom meeting. A couple of guidelines will help us proceed. Those joining us on Zoom, please mute your microphones when you are not called on to speak. Also, please type in your name and role in your position so it shows up at the base of your photograph. Also, if you have a question, please raise your hand icon. There's a little button that says icon saying raised hand, and unmute yourself when called upon. Those joining us on YouTube Live can comment at any time using the chat function. I will attempt to make sure that your comment is spoken aloud and elicit a response from the speaker or Zoom members. Thank you again for joining us on this adventure. Finally, before we begin, please take a moment to silence your cell phones, those of you in the Zoom meeting, just in case they go off while you're speaking. First of all, I would like to ask folks in the audience about whether or not you have new business or public comments to share at this time. This is the time when you can write in your questions or scream silently to yourself if you want. We're trying to figure out if there's any questions out there that we haven't heard yet. We pick up a lot of information on Nextdoor and through our information line. So are there any comments or questions out there?
Tamara, there are a couple of viewers who are not board members out there right now, and there's a Okay, so it may take a couple of minutes or
Okay.
2 seconds for any comments, but Meg's monitoring that.
Excellent.
Jay.
Well, for those of you who don't know, the residential infill project is coming back to a public hearing. And that is coming up on, I believe, June 3rd. But you have to register ahead of time if you want to testify. So I urge you to get online and put your name in if you want to testify, or if you want to say something, do so on their MAP app. And that's on the City of Portland Bureau of Sustainable, what is it? BPS, Bureau of Planning and Sustainability. And that's the department. Do we see any comments out there, or should we move on?
Tamara, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
They can also email testimony to cctestimony at I think
Portland, Oregon.
above.
Okay,
And just reference the June 3rd hearing.
okay. Thank you so much for that.
Somebody on the YouTube has asked if there are any updates on the playground, and we'll just respond that the playground project will have an update during committee reports.
Okay, we will. All right. Do we know if Officer Boylan has joined us yet?
Yes, he's here.
Ed, for some reason, I'm getting the request to admit people. I don't know why.
So am I, Kelly, because you logged in on
Oh,
the
okay.
program. So I'll do it. Officer Boylan is with us. Are you, Officer Boylan? There you go.
There you are.
Oh,
You're
we
on
can't
mute.
hear you. Are you muted, officer?
Can't hear you.
Yes, he is muted.
Well, it's
If you're not sure, Officer Boylan, the unmute can be in the lower left-hand corner. There's a little microphone icon down there, and sometimes you need to click on it to unmute yourself.
Spacebar will work as well.
Did he join the meeting with audio? That might be the problem.
I saw his picture for a minute. Where did he go?
well, he turned his camera off, but he's still got microphone is slashed out. Trying to come in again. All right. There he is.
How's that?
That's better.
All right.
You're sideways.
You're horizontal. Looks like there you go.
Okay.
You're climbing the walls.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Sure. So
So-
what's the latest news?
That's what I was going to ask you. What's
Oh.
the latest news with you guys?
Well, I did look at some stats this afternoon before I left the office. Nothing really, I guess, significant as far as news-wise. As far as, stats for your neighborhood, we have there's still, unfortunately, a lot of crime going on, a lot of, I guess, some of the usual things that we experience almost on a daily basis, some of which may not make the news, such as, shootings or shots fired, not necessarily in your area. But I'll try and answer it. If anybody has any questions, I'll try and answer those the best I can. We're still dealing with a lot of homeless issues that still I would say, as far as the neighborhood response team, one of the biggest things we still deal with on a regular basis. As you know, because of the virus situation, a lot of the camp cleanups have been put on hold. So you may notice more camps around, and that's probably the biggest reason why. So, but I don't really have any major news to pass along. But again, if you have questions, fire away.
I have a question, Officer Boylan. I think I read or saw on the news a stat that Portland had surpassed its annual homicide numbers within maybe the first quarter of this year already regarding, or maybe it was shootings, like more shootings. In any case, I think the homicide numbers were quite a bit higher than usual for this time of year. I was wondering if the department has any idea why that's happening. Is it gang-related activity that we haven't seen before? Is there like turf wars going on, or are people just frustrated by the current COVID-19 situation?
That's a good question. I'm not aware that the stats as far as numbers are higher than last year. I will say this. We get situational reports pretty much for every shooting, whether someone's injured or not. And most of the shootings, actually people are not injured, but total right now, I think we're up to 206, shooting incidents. Like I said, most of those is people are injured, but obviously some of them are. As far as the reasons why it may be higher, that's a good question. Maybe because people are, I can tell you that a lot of the sit reps I look at, there is a gang nexus to that. Not all of them, but a lot of them do have that. But as far as numbers, I can't break that down for you.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
One of our board members, Michelle Nidger, I have a hard time with her last name. She lives on 60th, and she is going to have to move because she has a nuisance house next to her, and it has about 11 people living there. And you may already know about this house. There are a number of folks living there that are on parole where they are not supposed to be living together. Is there any help that can be done to deal with those bad actors and get them out during this COVID-19 shutdown?
Yes, I mean, I think, and I'm pretty sure I'm familiar with the house you're talking about. So one of my coworkers that's been kind of assigned to him to work that specifically. I know he's been down there at least once, if not twice last week. He was down there again today. He's working with the gentleman who rents there and trying to work with him and get that place cleaned up. He's been working with the neighbors. He's looking for a guy right now he wants to arrest who went there and caused a disturbance last week with the gentleman who lived there. There was a conflict, a disturbance between these two gentlemen. There was a weapon involved. So we're looking for this guy to hopefully arrest him and file some charges. One of the problems, if it is the house I'm thinking about, just south of Halsey, is that right?
Yes, correct.
Okay. One of the main problems is that owner is not cooperative. So that makes it difficult in terms of dealing with tenant problems and chronic nuisance, which that house is becoming, if it's not already a chronic nuisance. So the bad news is you've got an owner that's not cooperating with us and with the city as far as cleaning that up. The good news is this officer is conscientious and he's a hard worker. So he's been tasked, hey, we want you to go out there and do everything possible you can to try and remedy that chronic nuisance location. So he is involved in that with the neighbors. And I was down there with him last week, and I know we've been out there on several different occasions, with the city code enforcement and things of that nature. So trying to hit that house from several different angles is probably our best bet. Not only the police side, but also code enforcement and hopefully cooperation from the gentleman who lives there. but not an easy one.
Thank you. We have one question from our YouTube feed from Linda Hoskin. She's asking if there have been any people arrested for the increase in graffiti in the neighborhood since the shutdown began.
I can't answer that right now. I don't know. But if I know Tamara has my email. If you want to email me, I can look into that for you and try and find that out. Because I'm noticing, not so much in Rose City, but I'm Rose City Park, but I'm noticing it seems like it's more graffiti in other places as well. We used to have a graffiti officer. That was their full-time gig, was to, look into graffiti and try and, solve those cases. We don't have that anymore. So, but if you can get with Tamara, she'll give you my email. We can correspond during the week and I'll try and find that information out for you. Okay?
I have a question, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, one follow-up question. What kind of graffiti, ma'am, are you seeing? Like certain tags, certain specific ones over and over again?
Might have to wait a minute because there's a lag. That was a question from the YouTube chat. So we'll see if they respond here in a minute.
Oh, okay.
While we're waiting, officer, I'll ask a question. So PBOT recently created these, I guess, safe streets, and in our neighborhood, Alameda and Sacramento have had some of those barricades placed with local traffic only signs affixed to them. The idea being to open them up as wide streets for pedestrians out for a walk or bikers. Is a traffic division paying attention to? I ride a lot and I see a lot of folks just driving through as if the barricades or the signs weren't there. And I know it's a PBOT program, but I was just curious if the police bureau is getting involved in that in any way.
I don't know of any programs right now, but I don't work with the traffic folks. So if you could also shoot me an email, I can check into that when I get back to the office. I know some of those traffic folks. I can ask them if they're doing any special missions out there to address those concerns of yours. But right now, I just don't know.
Very good, thanks.
Yep.
I have a question, Bob.
Yes, ma'am.
I heard on the radio that there was one resort town that opened up and they had massive amounts of kids having parties and big gatherings, and none of the police stopped it from happening, even though it was supposed to make sure, they were supposed to be 6 feet apart with social distancing. And the mayor said, well, the health department's in charge of that. And the health department didn't contact us. So we didn't enforce it. So I was wondering, what role does the police have during this time when there's restrictions placed on health?
So good question. I know that we have received some, the Portland Police Bureau has received some calls of that nature. Maybe not so much a large crowd, maybe a business operating that maybe they weren't supposed to, but anything involved in that will come in. It will usually be classified or set up as a civil call, a civil issue. The last thing that most of us want to do is go and make arrests for people that are doing that, right? There's so much other, quite frankly, real crime going on.
Yep.
I mean, as I've already talked about, there's so much of that happening that there's not a shortage of that. So we want to, our chief has basically told us, look, it's education. If we're called to those things, we actually respond. And in that situation where there's a party, we would try and educate people, try and get them to comply. And an arrest in that situation would be an absolute last resort.
Right.
And that's where our chief has directed us to. And even if it was arrest, it would be a citation probably only.
Okay.
So that's kind of where we're handling it.
Okay. Good to know. Thank you. Also, there was an interesting email story that we heard about where a North Portland Neighborhood Association chair was posting out to all the other neighborhoods that everyone should allow a camp, a homeless camp, to be located in their neighborhood. And I wasn't sure if you guys had heard about that, and if you'd heard about that, what your take on that was, or how should we address that?
Very interesting. I had not heard that. I would be curious to ask my coworkers if they'd heard that, but I haven't. I mean, I personally don't think we should be encouraging that. I mean, there's enough, as I talked about, there's lots of camps right now scattered all over the place, but I hadn't heard specifically that. I would probably talk to that individual and maybe see what, I guess, what the goal was of that email, or what their purpose was.
I believe the rationale is to possibly use some of the park space where there's facilities like a bathroom nearby.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I
Well,
think, I think they were intending to, instead of having just random sites, to create something with a little structure, kind of like Dignity Village, where they do have facilities, washing stations, the ability to self-govern themselves. That was the principle that I got out of the email, was that create some structure here and maybe provide some services for them. And there were 5 neighborhoods in North Portland that they were kind of collaborating on this idea and reaching out.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I would have some concerns, obviously, for public safety, especially where it was located, you know, and how that would affect the neighborhoods where they would be placed. You know, if you look at Dignity Village, that actually was started obviously by the city as an emergency campground. There was I talked to one of our city attorneys years ago. That was, you know, let's say the state of Oregon has a law that says, let's say you have a natural disaster. The local jurisdiction, the municipality, can come in and use a plot of land for an emergency situation, let's say a flood or an earthquake, to set up, you know, temporary housing, whatever it is. Well, that's what the city used with Dignity Village. And Dignity Village, like you said, now has, for years, they've been established. They actually have a board of people that sit, that kind of manage the affairs. If a person wants to go to Dignity Village, they actually have to apply and have interviews with this board, whether they'll be accepted or not. So there's a lot of work, I guess, that went into that over the years, as opposed to someone wanting to set up something in a neighborhood right now without all that, I guess, that legwork and work done on the back end, or whatever, how you want to say that. I know the city has also put up several camps or sites just recently within the last, I think, 2 or 3 months. And I don't have the exact locations. I know they have a couple hotels they're using for people that want to quarantine for the virus that's available. And they also have, I think one is in Southeast, and I can't remember what the other one is, where they have showers. They actually have a site set up with tents and showers and washing stations. So I guess there's some planning going into that, and you want to be careful as a neighborhood, you know, how much do we want to do this? Can we really manage this? So, but I again, I hadn't heard that email, but that'd be one of my concerns, is obviously public safety, and is that something they can really manage?
Okay, I just got news that this is an OPB article, and it's called Neighborhood Groups Advocate for Sanctioned Homeless Camps. So if you're interested in looking that up.
OPB, okay.
OPB.
How recent is that article?
Probably within the last 2 weeks.
Okay.
So I you know,
I'll have to look that up.
I guess part of the question is, you know, is there something that we as a neighborhood could do to help mitigate or diffuse the issue of having campers in our midst, and how do we do that?
Yeah, really good question. And I don't, I don't have any great answers. It's a difficult, I mean, it's amazing how much of my job at least is related, involving homeless issues. I mean, not all of it, but a lot of it is, just with everything going on.
Yeah, and I'm afraid it's going to get worse before it gets better
Yeah,
with the economy being crazy like it is right now.
yeah, yep,
Well, think of us as a resource for you. We are a group of volunteers that might be able to, provide, trash bags or ways in which we can help support these folks, and get them what they need, or figure out a negotiation between warring neighbors. So
okay.
pretty good about that.
Thank you. And I have a question. Do you, and now you mentioned the camps, but are you seeing in your neighborhood a lot of the RVs and trailers?
Well, in my neck of the woods, which is kind of the southeast quadrant, we have some typical campers over at Normandale Park. They park on the south side in their campers or sleep in the cars.
Yeah.
There's several cars that are always steamed up on Broadway, close in towards Hollywood District.
Mm-hmm.
So folks are sleeping in their cars near the Hollywood District as just a way to live.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. I mean, because I get reports of that. I see that in various places. Some, that get larger and larger as far as how many cars or vehicles or trailers are there. I don't get a lot in the residential neighborhoods per se. It's more, Park Rows and like places out by Airport Way.
Yeah.
But we do get them. So, and that's always a concern. Again, public safety, sanitation issues, alleged criminal activity that may be occurring, especially in neighborhoods where there may be drug activity, syringes that are, left outside of an RV or a trailer. That's something that we would definitely, I mean, if you were seeing that, please let me know and I can go out and investigate further.
Okay.
Can I ask a question here?
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
Terry, not quite our neighborhood, but the fringes of our neighborhood. Actually, it's a dual question. 72nd Drive that goes through the Rose City Golf Course. Oftentimes there's a van that's parked there and a couple of other cars at times. Obviously, somebody's sleeping in it near right at the ridge. And then the question that I have is, what about these campsites that are kind of almost coming into the street? Again, it's not quite our neighborhood, but it's egress and into our neighborhood. About 84th and Halsey, there by the camp that's kind of by the overpass there. I mean, the people are standing in the street sometimes when you go by there. Their tents are right up next to the curb.
Mm.
And it's a safety issue because you're kind of coming around a corner there. And I mean, again, it's not our neighborhood, but people in our neighborhood use Halsey to come in and out of the neighborhood. So that's why I'm asking the question.
Terry, I believe that's ODOT public right of way.
No, this is on Halsey behind the motel and on the backside of the car donation place there.
Okay.
Yeah, it's Portland. I've seen it there too, Terry. There's oftentimes some of their stuff is in the street, like a shopping
That's
cart.
correct. Yes. I've seen a barbecue in the street.
Crates. I've had to drive around that several times. Yeah.
So to answer your question, I mean, anything that blocks a sidewalk or the public right of way, the street is unlawful. So you could certainly you could call the police in non-emergency. If the officers, they could always refer to me and we could go out there and check it. When I say we, I mean the neighborhood response team. I'm one of 6 officers and each precinct has one. We, the neighborhood response team, and the officers who are patrol can do this. We can do, if I go out and the sidewalk is blocked, the street is blocked with a tent, some kind of structure, people living there, I can do an evaluation. And if there's human waste, if there's syringes, we can do an immediate an abatement of that situation where I call out a city work crew, they will respond, we stand by, and they will remove that entire structure, whatever it is, and we will get that person or people moved off that area to clear that up.
In this case, there is no sidewalk, but the tents are right up next to the curb on the street. Sometimes I've even seen a tent pole into the street. So when you're kind of coming around off of the overpass there, heading east, you know, like Joe said, I've seen people standing in the street too. There was one the other day washing something in the street.
Right. So in that case, if it's not on the sidewalk itself, that would probably, the city is going to slowly start posting some of these camps on a case-by-case basis. As I mentioned earlier, they've been very dialed back and have posted very little. But certainly if they're blocking a street or they're in the middle of the street washing things or doing stuff, I would encourage you to call non-emergency and say, hey, look, could you please send an officer out here to get these folks out of the street?
Thank you.
Sure.
Officer Boylan, I'll send you a link to that OPB article regarding the sanctioned homeless camps so that you don't have to search for it. I've got your email after the meeting. I'll send it to you.
Thank you.
I think you're muted, Tamara.
I am.
Oh, there you go.
There I am. So Bob, I had a question for you about the next couple months. I know that we're likely to open up more shops, more activities over the next couple months. And I do know that the petty thefts in our area have just continued to rise. Is there anything that we can do to reinvent the neighborhood watch that Udaley has torn down, or help you folks as far as making sure that folks that are caught stay in prison? I'm just worried about the, in and out of the petty theft folks. And I'm worried about the lockdown of the courts right now.
Yes.
And I think something needs to be done.
Boy, how much time do you have? You just hit a major,
We've got at least 10 minutes here.
So, as far as crime prevention and the neighborhood watch, I'm very sad to see that to kind of go away. It doesn't stop you folks from, gathering together yourselves and coming up with a plan if you choose to walk the streets. Hey, we're going to walk the street for an hour tomorrow night, with flashlights and whatever, do it safely. There's nothing that stops you from doing that is being proactive, good neighbors and citizens, even if there's not an official program right now. And you're just good witnesses. So if you see something, you call the police. You just be a good witness, and just be wise in what you don't want to get involved in something. But again, be a good witness. As far as the jail thing goes, that is unfortunately continues to be an issue as far as holding people in jail, holding them accountable. And I would say even in some cases, even less so now because of the virus. So that is an issue we as a police bureau can't control. I'll give you an example that our detectives did a big case late last week, arrested 2 gentlemen for over like 200 felonies involving fraud and theft. And I heard that they were let go the very next day. Just incredible to think that, between the 2 of them over several hundred felonies that they were committed and they were cut loose. I wasn't involved in that, but so that is an issue that.
What in God's name would allow that to happen?
Well, so the jail uses what's called a matrix system. So even before this virus broke, so when we bring someone into jail, they'll look at the person, their history, and what the charges are, and they have a matrix or a grid that they use to determine when they're going to let them out. And now with the COVID-19, we can still book people in a jail, but they're in some cases kicking them out even quicker, depending on what the charges are. So that, again, it continues to be an issue. I don't know, those changes would have to come from the county because the county runs a jail. So as far as holding people longer, I think most officers would be like, yes, that's a problem. It has been for some time and continues to be, but that would have to come from the county to correct that. And, whether it's a funding issue, whether it's a whatever issue you want to call it. I mean, that's just something that continues to be an issue, to be a problem.
Wow. That's
So
incredibly messed up.
So, excuse me, Officer Boylan, we have an online question from Mitchell Auerbach asking, should we still use the City of Portland online tool? And will the city respond and make an effort towards sweeping some of the most egregious camps? And he followed up with, if we call the police, what powers do they have?
Okay, so as far as still reporting things, I would say yes. The camps, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, they have been pretty much not cleaning anything except the most egregious. But I heard last week that they're going to start, the city is going to start implementing some additional cleanups coming in. And the way it's worked in the past is when they get a complaint about a camp, the city will go out and investigate that site, that particular camp, and they'll evaluate the severity of it, and then they'll schedule it for a cleanup at some point. Obviously, the worse it is, the sooner the cleanup. And that's supposedly is going to increase now, and hopefully I'll hear more at the end of this week, some more specifics about that. But it has been a lot of hands off right now, up until now, because of the virus. As far as calling the police, and what powers we have, it just depends on the situation, what we're facing, what we're dealing with. Certainly we have authority to take action. We deal primarily with crimes, not with civil issues, but we do get into that area of the camps. And as far as, if nothing else, security for the cleanup crews that go in there sometimes. And if we find something that's an immediate hazard, whether to kids, vulnerable adults, or just the general public, we can take action on that depending on what it is. So it's hard to give you specific with the power we have. It just depends on what situation we're going into.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Bob Boylan, for joining us. I'm going to have to turn the meeting to our committee reports here.
Sure.
So keep in touch. We'll share your email with our member of the public that called in or typed in. And at this point, I'd like to turn it to our treasurer and get a budget update or his budget report. And
Thank you.
We'll go through the other reports. Thank you so much.
Have a good night.
You too. Take care.
Okay, I submitted a budget report up through the end of April. There has not been much activity going on because of the pandemic. So we did not have our cleanup. We will not have that cleanup income. And at this point, we are about $3,000 behind what we were expecting for income for the year. Most of that would have been taken up by the cleanup. We're also a little bit behind on our community partners goal, but we were over on the monies we received from CNN. And as far as expenses go, of course, we have not had the hopeful concerts that will be coming up. So our expenses are about $2,000 less. So we're doing adequately. We have over $9,000 in the budget, in the checking account. And we're waiting to see what's going to happen with the concerts and how maybe we can possibly get a cleanup later on in the year. No figures have been generated for a budget for the next year because we don't know what's going to be happening. We have not heard if we're going to get support from CNN, as we've had some discussions on the board. We don't know if they're going to get a budget, if they're going to be funded. So we're kind of treading water.
Okay.
And that figures, I gave those to Ed, and they are on the website.
Excellent. Thank you so much for the update. Hey, Lynn, do you have any comments for communications? You're muted right now. There
Okay,
you go.
better?
That's better.
As Ed mentioned, we haven't had a lot of activity because with things, or excuse me, as Richard said, because we have been not doing, because the cleanup was canceled. We're picnic concerts in the park. We're hoping that those are going to go forward and that our activity will pick up in the context of those soon. And then depending on whatever happens with scheduling an event in the fall instead of National Night Out. The biggest changes that we've had going on have had to do with sending digital newsletters instead of hard copy out of the concern for the safety and well-being of our delivery crews. So our typical, we put out our typical digital April edition. The board decided to make the May edition a special digital only, and recently formalized are having a new regular issue in the summer, but that will also be digital only. So that will be coming up very soon. I want to remind everybody that it is possible to sign up to get email copies of the digital newsletters by going to the website and signing up on the homepage. There's a place on the homepage as well as elsewhere. They're also available online. If you don't get the email and you haven't noticed it via Facebook or Nextdoor. And also regarding the newsletters, we'd love to hear from people about how they think we're doing. Easy enough to just send an email to editor@rcpna.org and we will get it. Would also be, if anybody's interested, you want to do a letter to the editor or you'd like to submit a column or an article, don't hesitate to let us know because we're very open to those kinds of things. With regard to the website, some things have been moved around to try to make it more accessible and readable and easier to find. And there's also now a new link to the history books, which are available for purchase via the website. So that'd be worth looking for. Hopefully things that have been moved around are hopefully going to be easier to find. They're a little bit less hidden than they had been before, not that they intentionally ever were. We have a new member of our committee, Nate Ramsey, who recently returned to Portland after living in Washington, D.C. for some years. And he is going to be working on the newsletter also, as well as being involved in other committee matters. He is starting with a series of newspaper columns about local restaurants, which will begin appearing in the summer issue. So please watch for that, and we're pleased to have him. And that is my report.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Joe Saraceno,
Yes,
give us an update on the Rose City Park Playground project.
Yeah, absolutely. So despite everything that's been going on so far this year, the playground project has been moving forward and we've had some significant donations so far this year. Earlier in the year, and this was in one of the newsletters, we launched what we called the 100 families for $100,000. It's a fundraising campaign designed to get 100 families in the neighborhood to donate $1,000 or more to reach our goal of $100,000 in community giving. So far this year, we've raised $5,000. 1,000 of that has come as recently as a few weeks ago. So despite some of the hardship and struggle out there, people are still living through giving. So it's really a cool thing that this campaign is moving forward, and we've done our best to keep it alive. One thing we did have to cancel, some folks may remember we threw a play day last year in early June, We had about 400 people come out from around multiple neighborhoods, Roseway, Rose City Park, Hollywood, Madison South. It was a big community event with a lot of participants, but we had to cancel that for this year for obvious reasons. But we are working and planning on some future events. Might not be this year, might be next season, but our wheels are turning for that. So if anyone, and I know we had a question earlier about updates, a great way to follow us is on Instagram and Facebook. Our Instagram handle is RCP Playground Project. And we try to post stuff all the time. We recently created a fundraising thermometer. We're currently at $15,000. So things like that we post to keep people excited and informed about what we're doing. But we still have a long way to go. So if anyone is interested in participating, giving, you can reach out to us via email or Instagram or Facebook. So you can look for a Rose City Park Playground Project through those channels.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good work.
Thank
Such
you.
an exciting project. Okay, next we have Kelly Davis, co-chair for the Land Use and Transportation Committee. Kelly, are you there?
I'm here. So let me give you a quick update on some of the ongoing projects. The Sandy 51 apartments at 51st and Sandy, that construction has topped out at 6 stories. They're now installing some of the exterior materials, and they're still supposedly on schedule to be completed in November or December of this year. The Umpqua Bank apartments at 47th and Sandy, I believe they're up to about the 3rd of 6 stories, but they won't be completed until sometime next year. So the 60th Avenue improvements in Northeast Halsey, this is a project that PBOT has been working on for some time. That project is in final design, but due to the pandemic, construction has been postponed until spring of 2021. So Tamara already talked about the residential infill project. We talked about this at our last land use meeting. The hearing on June 3rd, Tamara is planning to present a letter addressing how the residential infill project is not in compliance with the adopted comprehensive plan. We're going to talk about that at the board meeting next month. Our Lady of Lavang, which is the facility at 57th and Sandy. We understand that they are doing some renovations of a new church that they purchased, and it's about a year or a year and a half out. But they're planning on hosting some of their summer events at the new location. So that'll be a little less draining on our neighborhood and the parking status. Some newer projects, we have a new set of apartments proposed for 5024 Northeast Fremont. We received some design drawings for that project. They're doing 10 one-bedroom units in 2 3-story wings with another 1,000 square foot of retail. No parking is provided or required. We had a neighbor come to us at our last meeting in May to talk about traffic at 50th and Fremont. This neighbor was concerned about left and right turns from 50th onto Fremont. Cars are parked way too close to the intersection and visibility is limited. So our neighborhood association is proposing to write a letter to PBOT and others to encourage enforcement of the no parking rule within 20 feet of an intersection. So painting of curbs or no parking signs or some other method of police enforcement, we're hoping they will pursue. We already talked about the nuisance house enforcement. One of our board members is encountering problems with a nearby house that Tamara talked about a couple of minutes ago. We are looking at, or Tamara has offered to testify to council, outlining the failures of the city to enforce the nuisance house and some other laws. So we'll talk about that at our next board meeting. And finally, the Flatiron Building at 58th and Sandy. We saw next door and on Portland maps that there's a possible street vacation that's proposed on 58th by the building owners, and we really don't know too much about that. So I've been tasked with looking into this and reporting back to the neighborhood association on the status. And that's all I have from land use.
Excellent, thank you. Ed, do you want to update us on anything that we haven't already heard with the events?
Just the events. We have a permit that is, the dates are transferable. If we can get the go ahead and abide by the governor's orders in September, perhaps. And so that's where we're at. We're going to hope that there's a evolution of a downturn in the coronavirus situation, and that we can hold the concerts in September, and stay tuned, and that's it.
That would be lovely.
So, okay, that's it on events.
Thank you. On final note of business that we've got is we are supposed to hold our board elections now. And since we're dealing with digital communication, we can't go ahead and hold our elections. So we're postponing the elections until October of this year, in hopes that the world will come full circle and we'll have face-to-face meetings again by that time. Those of us currently in office will continue in our roles until the elections occur at a public gathering. Part of the difficulty is the fact that we need to verify those who actually vote that they live in Rose City Park District. And that's pretty close to impossible. Currently, we have 13 board members. 4 of us are officers. Myself as the chairwoman, Ed as the vice chair, Richard Crockett is our treasurer, and Jennifer Sainthouse is our secretary. The remaining 9 members are at-large positions. The bylaws do allow up to 21 board members. So if anyone's interested in serving on the board, or even just as a committee member, just let us know at info@rcpna.org. We will be holding our positions until October's election, and then we'll see what we can do about holding the public elections. At this time, I'd like to turn the microphone over to Joe Saraceno, who will serve as our MC for the COVID-19 Stories of Hope, Creativity, and Strength. Joe?
Yes, thank you, Tamara. Yeah, we want to take a little time now to share some stories from the local neighborhood of how people have been coming together through this trying time. So we'll take a little time now, and then after our guest speaker, Deborah Kafori speaks, we'll share a few more stories as well. The first one we have on deck is an Easter celebration. So I should ask, is Liz Rains here? Oh, there.
I'm
okay.
here.
Nice. Or is I have your last name wrong, it looks like.
That's my maiden name. They both work.
Excellent. Well, welcome and thank you very much. I think Ed is going to put some pictures up, but while he's pulling those up, would you like to share about what that event was all about? And I understand it was, I think, on a certain block outside and everyone kind of celebrating together, neighbors.
Yes. So my name is Liz. Nice to meet you all, and thank you for having me. This is a small event that we did with our neighborhood on 52nd, where we decided as a block that we would gather for Easter, and we all come from completely different religious backgrounds, family backgrounds, all different places that we've come from. And you can see our neighbor Tim right there. He had decided to write a few words to share with everyone about Easter celebrations, and made it sort of a non-evangelical and religious event, but for the people that work, he also was able to throw some words together for them. And so we all dressed up, as you can see, some fun hats there. And if you just want to flip through some pictures, I'd be happy to kind of explain. The family groups all got together, and you can see we grouped people across the street in front yards, and we drew circles around people with chalk so that everyone could social distance away from each other. And here's one of the families. This is Lena and Jess and her mom. So we got to play some music. Different families brought their own, drinks, and the kids got to kind of do some social distance games, which was really fun. That's our sweet little neighbor, Lena. And you can see the chalk that we drew to try and keep families separated and try to keep little kids separated as well. There's our beloved Grand Tam. She was a part of our event as well. And so we just tried to include anyone that was interested in being a part. And many of us have families in the area, but we decided that it would be a better idea because at the time we were all pretty nervous about the COVID. So we decided to just celebrate as kind of a local group. Again, you can kind of see people tried to stay away from each other. We tried to group everyone by families and 6 feet away. And you can see we also did a little Easter egg hunt for some of the little kids. So that was sort of a fun thing that we got to do. And if you want to keep, oh, there's my daughter, Elliot, and myself dressing up to celebrate. You can keep flipping through if you want. Here's the Perkies. I don't know if any of you know them, but they've got 3 kiddos. The sweet daughter, Madeline, had to come home from college early. I'm sure you all know the stories that are similar. So it was really nice that we got to kind of be together. So yeah, that's another family group, Grand Tam chatting with the family. So, for us and for our neighborhood, we've really seen the joy that has come out of the COVID situation. It's really slowed us down. We've gotten to spend a lot more time with the people around us, getting to know each other a little bit better. And so hopefully you've all experienced that as well, but this was sort of our way of doing it. You can see Nina Portwood there with her gloves on. She was dropping off drinks in a socially distanced way for people. So
Great.
And there's, yeah. So it was a really fun way to get together and, keep the family groups together and keep the neighborhood together. So I'm not sure what that, yeah.
Yeah, that's just a random teeter-totter shot. So well, thank you so much for sharing those. Looks like you guys had a beautiful day to gather outside and be together. So really appreciate you taking time to share that. I think it's good just to see people out together. I know in my own block, we've done similar impromptu gatherings on the sidewalk, and where my wife and I sit way up the driveway and our friends sit toward the sidewalk. And it's been great. So thank you, Liz. We really appreciate that.
Thank you.
So now we're going to transition. Our very own board member, Dawn Levine, wrote a poem entitled Viral Days. And so we have a recording of his, Dawn, shall I say, performance. So we'll cue that up and listen to Dawn's poem. And poor Ed has the thankless task of mining through many files to try to pull all the various things that were thrown at him for this meeting and for these stories that people are sharing with us. And remember, you can control the volume on your own computer. So if it's a little low on our end, you can turn it up on yours.
I don't hear anything yet.
Ed, is it playing?
Now?
A weird sound.
We can move this item to the end of the performance. If you'd like.
Yeah.
We do have Deborah Kapori
Yes.
with us.
And do you think we should wait?
Yeah, it's playing, but we have a transmission problem of some sort. So let's move on
Okay.
for now.
Well, And Dawn, I don't know, maybe you might have to ask for a live performance, but I don't want to put you on the spot, just gonna prepare you. Okay, Tamara, it's all yours. We'll turn it over to you and to our
Okay.
guest speaker. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, it's my great honor to introduce our guest speaker tonight, Multnomah County Chairwoman, Deborah Kafoury. Born in Walla Walla, Washington, Kafoury received her bachelor degree from Whitman College, a great college. She is the chair of the Multnomah County Commission, where she succeeded Jeff Cogan. She previously held a seat on the commission, which she resigned in October 2013 in order to run for the May election in 2014. Kafoury was the founder of the Political Action Committee, XPAC, and served 3 terms in the Oregon House of Representatives from 1999 to 2005, including her leadership role in the Democratic Caucus. She is the daughter of Stephen Kafoury and the late Gretchen Kafoury. Welcome. Thank you for joining us, Deborah.
Thank you. Good evening to everyone, and thank you so much for having me tonight. And thank you, Tamara, for reaching out to my office. Appreciate the opportunity to talk with you tonight and hopefully answer your questions and hear your thoughts and concerns. But first, I just want to tell you that I know that the last few months have been really trying for everyone. And while our community has faced unprecedented hardships, it's stories like the one that we just heard from Liz that really keep me going. And I hope, I'm so glad to have gotten the chance to hear that because I have just seen incredible ways that our community members have stepped up to help each other. And so I'm sure that many of you have been part of these efforts to care for neighbors in your own neighborhood or across the county. So I thank you for showing the best of Multnomah County during this time. Tamara sent me several questions from you that she was hoping I could answer. And I'm sure that there are many more questions you have, but I'll start with these and then we can open it up for questions and answers. The first question that she sent was, there are mixed messages on how the virus can be transmitted. What sources should we listen to? And I will totally agree that it is very confusing to have so many different people and agencies giving different guidance and guidelines. In fact, there's a very funny article that was in the New Yorker a month or so ago that talked about how the different guidance is contradictory, even in the best of circumstances. So it can be really difficult if you're trying to figure out what are the best ways to protect ourselves. For me, I believe that we need to listen to those who've been educated and worked in communicable disease transmission for years. And that's why I'm so confident in Multnomah County's health leadership, like our Tri-County Health Officer, Dr. Jennifer Vines, our Public Health Director, Rachel Banks, and our Communicable Disease Director, Kim Taves. I look to them to guide our decision-making process on how we can manage community transmission and how we keep everyone as safe and healthy as possible. They are all experts in their fields, and they each display a combination of thoughtful leadership, guidance, and compassion that made them leaders before the pandemic, and they've just been invaluable voices once the crisis has hit. And I have to give a little plug to our Multnomah County Emergency Operations Center webpage, our COVID-19 webpage, which you can find at multco.us/COVID-19. It has up-to-date guidance and resources, and that's where you'll also be able to find the latest about our reopening plans, which I'm sure that we'll talk more about later. So the second question is about the uneven allocation of federal funds and whether this has been rectified. So let me start for those of you who haven't heard this, what's going on. So Multnomah County is home to 20% of the state's population. Unfortunately, we've had 40% of the deaths from COVID, and Multnomah County government does 100% of our region's public health response. The state of Oregon received $1.7 billion in the Federal CARES Act, but Multnomah County has only received $28 million of that, and that's less than 2%. And people are always asking why. I mean, especially in Oregon, the counties are the public health entities. This is the job that we do. But when they were deciding these formulas back in DC, they just used a population. So, and we have the city of Portland within Multnomah County boundaries. So the city of Portland got a huge investment and the county was left with not very much. I will say that as leaders of the regional public health response and as the largest safety net system in Oregon, we will put that $28 million to good use, but it is nowhere near enough to fund what we've already identified that it's going to take us through the next year to keep our community healthy and safe. We know that once we reopen, we've already seen some of this happening, that people are going to start to get sick and we need to be able to act quickly. So our public health response includes the contact tracing and case investigation, which I'm sure you've heard a lot about. I'm happy to answer more questions about that. We're also responsible for taking care of people in our congregate settings, like our shelters for our homeless neighbors, the jail and juvenile detention. And we know that that congregate living situation is just ripe for disease. We also are working to maintain or expand our wraparound services to help meet people's basic needs, which, as you know, because of the huge unemployment, those needs are even, there are more people in need than ever. And we're also leading our communication, education, and engagement strategies so that people can understand what's going on. And as I like to say, there's no way to over communicate right now because things are changing so rapidly that people are just hungry for more information. Our government relations team is working on overdrive to advocate for more funding at the federal, the state, and the local level. And in fact, this morning, our health department folks testified in front of the city council, Portland City Council, about the effort that we're doing. And I'm confident that they will partner with us because they know that until we have the money to fund this, we're not going to be able to safely reopen. And everybody wants to focus on that. So the next question is about what is the role of a neighborhood association and what role can a neighborhood association play during this turbulent time? I just want to say I love this question. Like I said before, the community response has been so inspiring to witness, and this question tells me that people want to do more. The first thing that I would suggest, and I saw it from those pictures, is to remain vigilant about distancing. And now, since those pictures were taken, I know face coverings have come into norm. And so especially as businesses and public spaces begin to open back up, it's important to maintain the 6 feet of physical distancing and to wear face coverings if you're indoors. People naturally want things to get back to normal as quickly as possible, but until there's a widely accessible vaccine or a cure, we're going to have to create a new normal that gives us the best chance of keeping each other safe. I've seen some neighborhood retail areas start to open up and people walking around. And it would be wonderful if your neighborhood association could continue to push out the message that we need to wear masks and stay 6 feet apart. That's going to be crucial to us avoiding a new surge. I'm sure many of you have heard about the second wave, they call it, that may come this fall. So we want to avoid that if possible. We've done such a good job to date. You know, we're one of the leaders in the entire country in keeping our infection rates low. We want to keep it that way. And also, I think I've heard from so many people, if we open things up and then we have to close it back down, it's going to be even worse on our businesses and on our mental health. The last question that I received was, what can individuals do to help our community and reboot our economy? This one is an easy one too. Shop local. I think it's really important, especially now that retail is beginning to reopen. Using the safety precautions, support your local retailers, continue to order takeout from your favorite restaurants. And I try to do this too, is to leave a big tip to those frontline workers who are out there every day in public facing jobs. If you still have a stimulus check left over, spend it in your neighborhood, and also spend it on the local nonprofits. There are a ton of nonprofits who have stepped up, who are working to feed and shelter and support those who are suffering right now. And one thing that I've noticed is pretty rampant right now is misinformation, especially in this era of social media. Just easy to retweet or to put something on Facebook without checking to make sure that you've got your information from credible sources. And that misinformation is dangerous. So it's up to us to make sure that the information that we're sharing is accurate. And then I think really the most important thing that we can all do is to continue to be patient and empathetic. Be patient with yourselves during this quarantine. If you're anything like me, there's been ups and downs, and be patient with your neighbors and your coworkers, with the businesses and restaurants that are trying creative new ways to serve you safely. And I'll have to put this plug in. Be kind to your local government, because we're working hard to ensure that our community can be prepared to reopen safely. So with that, I will open it up for questions. And if people just want to give comments too, it doesn't have to be a question, it could just be a comment.
You'd mentioned reopening a couple of times, and forgive me if my mind wandered and you'd already mentioned something, but I was curious, what's the forecast for, I guess, phase one would be step one, I guess.
The $1 million question. We do have a dashboard that we put up on our website, the COVID website, which tracks the progress of each of the prerequisites that the governor has laid out for reopening. And we are not there yet. I'm hoping tomorrow, actually, we're going to have a board briefing tomorrow afternoon, and I'm hoping to have a conversation about dates, publicly have a conversation about dates. So tomorrow, stay tuned. We will we will have a conversation with some specific dates on it, which I think will be really helpful for giving people a sense of what's happening. I know a lot of people are confused because Clackamas County is already opened. Washington County is going to reopen on the 1st of June. And they wonder, why is it taking you so long in Multnomah County? And there's several reasons. As you can imagine, we are the largest, most populous county in the state. We have the most people who are vulnerable, whether that's vulnerability because of age, because of underlying health conditions, or vulnerability because of they're living without shelter, or they're in a congregate living situation like our jail. We're home to the most hospitals, and we have the most densely populated community with most of the transit. So we're really ripe for an explosion if there is an outbreak. And so it's really important that we meet the governor's guidelines. For example, one of them is about contact tracing. We have to be able to, if somebody gets sick and that's registered with the public health department, we have to be able to reach out to them within 24 hours, and we have to do that 95% of the time. So I think we're at about 80%, which is great, but we're not quite there yet. I will say we're taking things slowly and cautiously, because we know that if an outbreak occurs, there are so many people who could be affected. But stay tuned tomorrow. We'll have some dates and some parameters to give people, give people a sense of hope that we're moving in the right direction, and we're doing so cautiously and thoughtfully with the safety and health of our community at the forefront of our mind.
Has there been conversations with the city, since they got the lion's share of the CARES money, about maybe sharing with the county, who has the responsibility for health for the areas that overlay?
Definitely. They have expressed an interest in an understanding that it's in their best interest to help the county. We've talked with them really about two areas. One is, since we jointly fund the Office of Homeless Services, that seems like a natural area for them to pay half of the costs for. And then we're also talking with them about the public health response. And so while they haven't committed to a number yet, I'm confident that there will be money coming from them. I also believe that although the state originally said that they were not going to spend any money in Multnomah County, I think as we're seeing that it's taking us longer to open than the rest of the state, it's in their best interest as well to help support help support the outreach and the work that we're doing here. So I think that in the next couple of weeks, you're going to see a big shift where dollars are going to start coming to us from both the city and the state. At least I keep my fingers crossed.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What, if anything, can the county do to encourage some of the larger retailers, such as, for example, Walmart, and I am naming them specifically because I've seen this myself, to do more to set the example for mask wearing and social distancing? They were doing a good job early on, and then it's gotten less and less and less controlled, other than they're still counting the number of people who can go into the store, and they're still making sure that people, do somewhat spacing in the store, but nothing about masks. And I would say the last time that we were there, probably 85% of the people that were there were not face covered.
That you bring that up, and I've witnessed the same thing at my local Safeway. I felt like at first everybody was doing a really good job, and it's kind of, the quarantine fatigue or pandemic fatigue is set in, and people really, really want things to get back to normal, not understanding that we're going to be in this for a while. It could be a year, could be 18 months. So we really need to continue to do those practices as you're referring. We are working with Prosper Portland, which is the economic development arm of the city, and also with the Portland Business Association, to set up some criteria so that businesses will have a better understanding of how they can outfit their organizations, their businesses, their buildings to make them safe. Obviously, we don't have the staff to go around and monitor each of these places. It is going to take some responsibility on the business owner. And that's why I think going to the business associations, because they have the ability to talk to a broad range of people. And then there's also the possibility of doing some kind of mandate. And doing a mandate for like face coverings is fraught because we don't have the ability to enforce. I think though that you may see something like that coming, at least a strong suggestion. And even though the governor has said that, our public health people are saying, if you're inside of an establishment, you need to be wearing a face covering. It's one of those things that's kind of non-negotiable.
Are the business associations going to be able to reach out to so again, I'm going to use a Walmart example, of these stores that are in Multnomah County, but outside the Portland city limits?
Yeah, and they are all part of one of the various business associations. Most of the businesses have some connection, even the especially I should say the really large retailers. So we're also reaching out to some of the smaller business associations that have the kind of mom and pop shops who maybe don't have the they don't have the resources that a bigger store like Walmart has, but they definitely, I mean, they have the resources. They should be encouraging people to follow the rules.
Thank you.
Instead of a stick like a mandate, the other option would be a carrot thing. And it sounds kind of corny, but like in elementary school, you get stars for performing well. The business associations recognize certain stores. I could name some that just feel totally safe in and others not. And it would be a way of maybe nudging stores. You could get feedback from customers that Acme, is really a great store. I don't know, but since we're in it long term, it might be good information for people to have that certain businesses are doing a better job of abiding by the advice to mask up and maintain distancing.
I think that's a great idea, and then we could do some publicity around it too, and get the business or the store some publicity for doing a great job and showing what about them are doing. What are the pieces of the guidance that they've taken into practice that they're doing a good job. And I have Liz Smith Curry on the phone. She's one of my staff, and Liz, we got to remember that one. I think that's a good idea.
I think, let me interrupt and add a few thoughts.
Sure.
With that same idea, maybe you could go about doing COVID preemption certification or some type of where you would actually have investigators go and check out places, and then people would see a safe sign on the outside of the building saying, okay, this place is kept safe, just like a health inspection you would have in a food restaurant. I'm just wondering if we can step that up so that then people can say, I want to go out to eat. What place is safe to go?
And we do have restaurant inspection is in Multnomah County Public Health's wheelhouse. That is one of our areas. So if somebody's in a restaurant, when those are able to be opened up, if someone's in a restaurant and they see that that the restaurant is not meeting the guidelines, that is an area that they can call Multnomah County or call my office or call our hotline. So restaurants are, I mean, that's everything. They have their own little niche, but with the bigger stores, I do think that's a great idea. Some kind of sign of it's safe to shop here, or I don't know that you could legally say that but so we're trying our best, a gold star on our outside of our restaurant or our business.
Thank you. We did have a question earlier. I'm sorry, Meg, did you speak up?
Yeah, I did have another question. It's kind of a hypothetical because it seems like some people are worried that Multnomah County is not open, so they're going to other counties to do things like maybe shop or or maybe they leave to go stay at a relative's house or something like that. I was wondering if there's data or information about the safety or not the safeness of doing something like that, and what kind of message that the county and the city should be maybe putting out about that.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and it is one of the reasons too why I think we've been talking about reopening at Multnomah County, because we don't want to be so far behind that people just either start reopening without following any rules, or that people leave and go to other communities to go to a restaurant or go shopping. I think that we viewed, so on May 15th, the governor's order said that all retail can open if you are not in a mall. So in Multnomah County, all retail that's not in a mall can open. And so we viewed that as kind of like that was kind of like phase one. So we're waiting to see in the next few weeks what the outcome is. We'll see if there's an outbreak anywhere or if we have more cases coming up. And then this past weekend, being Memorial Day weekend, I did hear stories of a lot of people who left town and went somewhere else. I think that's part of the difficulty when the coast is open, but they say, please don't come visit. And yet their economy is based on tourism. So there are, as we talked about earlier, a lot of mixed messages. I think what our public health people would say is that it's best to stay close to home. And that was the message that I heard coming from the state this weekend was stay close to home, local shopping only. Don't leave and go into a different community. Because while they don't know yet about herd immunization, there's still, as things are opening up a little bit, you can have gatherings like we saw that Liz showed with the pictures of people outdoors, spaced 6 feet from each other, unless you're in a family. That's okay. They recommend, in fact, it's recommended, it's good for your mental health to get out of your house and socialize with your neighbors. But leaving your community and going into a different community is something that is still not recommended at this time. I do think there was some data that I saw, the tracking devices showed that last weekend there were a lot of people on the road, a lot more people than had been. So I think it is going back to the kind of pandemic or COVID fatigue. We have to come up with new ways to interest ourselves, to continue to keep ourselves interested in still staying safe and staying close to home.
I have a question.
Sure.
Yes, Terry. I'm curious, what percentage of the COVID cases and the people that have passed away are in, like, I don't really want to say care facilities, but facilities that have group type living, you know,
Mhm.
where they were eating together and stuff like that. Because it seems like to me, if a great percentage of those people are in that type of a facility, they're not the ones that are out and about or going shopping and whatnot. And I just wonder how that plays into reopening the economy.
Yeah, that is a really good point. I would say I don't have the data in front of me, but I think it's a large percentage of the people who have passed away have been in some type of a congregate living facility, and there's a lot to be learned from that. One of them is looking at how we're dealing with the transmission of that disease. When you do a contact tracing, you go out and you track down the individual and you talk with them about who they've been in contact with, and then you talk to those folks. And because Oregon was, I think I'm correct, the first state in the country that closed the doors of congregate living facilities like that to visitors, way back when this first hit, when we first heard about it, because it was in a facility in Washington State, if you remember. So the state quickly put a ban on any visitors being allowed, which means that the people who are living in those facilities who got the disease got it from the folks who are working there. And we have found through some of the tracking and tracing that it could be an individual who worked at 3 different places, like they've had different clients in different establishments. So they would go to 3 different places once they got it. So that's how that disease is transmitted to people who are in a facility where they actually don't leave.
Thank you.
I have another question about, as things are reopening, is the county giving any guidance to facilities that have closed their restrooms?
I don't know. That is a really good question. I'm going to have to get back to you on that one.
I noticed a number of grocery stores have, their restroom sign now says no restrooms, and many of them they're not available. So even if you are out running an essential errand, you may have a problem.
I hadn't noticed. I'll have to check in on that one. I think it's because of cleaning. You'd have to clean it up maybe after every use. But
right, I expect it is, but it makes me wonder. How long are they going to be able to continue to do that as we get more and more open?
Well, and that raises a good point for restaurants. I mean, when you're able to go into a restaurant for indoor seating, you're going to have a bathroom. So that's something we'll have to check. Liz, will you help me remember that one too? Thank you.
Thank you.
I have one question from earlier today. We were talking with our neighborhood response team officer, Bob Boylan, and he was telling us about 2 characters that had 200 felonies between the 2 of them. And because of the matrix system set by the county, they were not taken in, they were turned away and put back on the street. So I'm wondering, because we have a lot more break-ins, car thefts, catalytic converters being torn out, happening now than we have in the past 6 months, which is a lot. I'm curious, how is the county police department and justice system working during this virus?
That is a very complex situation. The criminal justice system is, I don't have a background in that when I came in to work at the county, and it is one of the most complex systems I've dealt with. You have so many different entities working together with kind of nobody being the boss. So the court system is run by the state, The district attorney is a county employee, but they are actually kind of split between the county and the state. The police is run by Portland, the city of Portland, and then the jails are run by Multnomah County. So when COVID first hit, actually the courts were the first to say, we're gonna not hold hearings, trials, or very, very few. And then you run into questions of the persons who's incarcerated, their constitutional rights with a speedy jury trial. But then how do you have 250 people show up for jury, sit together packed in a jury room? I mean, you can see how it would be extremely convoluted. And then plus we have with the jail trying to space people out so that people are 6 feet apart when we used to have bunks in the dorms. So they stopped doing trials except for if they're hitting their maximum number of days without having a trial, or if there's something very, very serious, murder trial or something they needed to hold. But I don't know, the papers, whenever they do hold a trial, the courts get slapped from the reporters about having a trial. So that adds another element to it. I would say when I hear stories like the one that you just told me, I always want to find out more information, because I think sometimes there's a nuance to it that's not so easily explained. If people are out there committing numerous untold crimes, they're going to have to face some consequences. It's not as if they just get, let go free. There are assessment tools that they use to see whether the likelihood that you're going to commit another crime, whether the severity of your crime, and those are the things that help make the decision from the courts or the DA about what your trial is going to, or what your sentence is going to be. So that's a long way of saying it's really complex. I'm not saying that the officer that you spoke with was wrong. I just would like to know more information before I give you a comment on if you were asking about that specific or those specific cases. I do know that person-to-person crime has gone down, except for domestic violence in the county, in the state actually, since COVID-19 hit. But there have been some of the more petty theft, not so much on residents, but on businesses that have increased.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's going to be a real challenge, because as now we know that this isn't just kind of a 1 or 2 month situation. We're going to have to figure out, as we're talking about continuing physical distancing, face coverings, how we're going to start to resume court hearings and trials, and how we're going to, how all of that is going to work in an age when we have all these restrictions.
Yeah, you may have Zoom meetings, courtrooms. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting. Okay, well, our time's about up. Are there any other questions out there from the public that we haven't addressed yet?
Feel free, and I'll put my my email on here too. Feel free to send me an email if you have questions that didn't get answered, or if something comes up in the weeks, months ahead, and you want to get in touch with me. I'm happy to have that conversation again.
It's so wonderful to have you here with us. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Take care.
Stay safe.
Be safe. Okay, at this point in time, I'm going to turn it back over to Joe Saraceno for some more COVID stories from the neighborhood.
Great. Thank you. Well, I thought we'd pick up with Dawn. Ed, I don't know if you had any luck with the audio.
Yeah, I think I figured out what the problem was, Joe, which was on the share screen, I needed to check share audio. So.
Oh, very good.
Hang on a second here while we, that's the photo, which I don't want. And then I gotta pause Don's, and we paused him.
And for anyone that just joined, we're sharing some stories of hope, creativity, strength, joy, and fun from around the neighborhood. People, what they've done during this COVID-19 situation. And so one of our board members, Don Levine, wrote a poem called Viral Days. And we are going to share a picture of Don here, I believe, making some masks and a reading of his poem.
Yeah, I just have to find the poem here. I got too many things. Come on, where's the audio? It's the last. Don, I'm gonna kill your.
Well, if it's, I did confer with Don behind the scenes, and he's.
Oh, I got it.
All right.
All right.
April is Poetry Month.
Beautiful.
Poem. Viral Days. I listen when my partner speaks. We've been together all these weeks. We're working hard to pass the test of this enforced togetherness. The days go by no longer new, just living in this world of two. We may walk naked through the room, forgetting that we're both on Zoom. We don't yet grab each other's throat when arguing over the remote. Outside is where the dangers lie. Stay on the porch, let them go by. So when we're walking down the street, we struggle to maintain 6 feet to stay away from each millennial, whose unawareness seems perennial. And we can feel our skill set growing when we're hunched over face mask sewing, coming up with great design, but she's got hers, and I've got mine. Still, she will bring me up to task if I go out without a mask to hunt provisions, wine, and more, and one stop at the liquor store. We hope that others do admire us as we maintain through days of virus. We'll hunker down until the end and then emerge to hug our friends.
Beautiful. Thank you, Don. Yeah, big applause. I really like that poem. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Wonderful.
So I think I'll just keep marching forward here. The next bit we're going to share is from the Rose Festival Porch Parade. We have a series of pictures that people in the local neighborhood decorated their homes in support of various businesses. So as we go through these photos, I kind of have a little info on each one so I can help just point out what business. Ah, yes. So this photo here is in celebration of Annie's Donuts, which is located on 34th and 72nd. Tasty little donut shop there in Roseway. Our next photo is our very own.
There we go.
There you go. Kelly Davis's place. Kelly's been a long-time member of the Rose City Park Neighborhood Association, was chair for many, many years. And he's got his place decked out in Rose Festival gear. Kelly, I really like the inflatable inner tube roses. That's a very nice touch there.
Thank you. Thank you.
And the banner, that's a score. That must have been from a few years ago.
Like 20 years ago.
I knew it was a classic. I think that's vintage. And then the next place we got Ed, I think we're gonna look at someone, Garden Fever, which is over on 3433 Northeast 24th Ave. Always want to give a plug. Good little neighborhood garden center, selling plants and tools, and they also do classes and lectures there. So that's, wow, they got that's a good looking layout there.
And I think that'll help you give kits to build birdhouses down here. A retired teacher, a shop teacher lives there. So want to build a birdhouse. These are, except for Kelly's, these are all on Northeast 54th between Stanton and Siskiyou. And most of the neighbors are participating. And the theme was support Portland small businesses.
That's right. Thank you, Ed. Yeah, I wonder if those birdhouses are still out there. I might have to swing by. All right, we've got, Movie Madness, one of my personal favorites. Not sure if everyone knows, but the Hollywood Theater actually purchased Movie Madness a few years ago. It's over on 43rd and Belmont. One of the last of its kind, classic rental shop for videos. And it's also a bit of a film museum. Really, really cool place. And I really wish they were open because I don't know why, but I've really been wanting to watch Cocoon. And if you if you ever had an urge to watch Cocoon, it is not available to stream on any platform. I don't know why. I don't know. You can get the second Cocoon, but not the original Cocoon. So if anyone out there has a DVD of Cocoon, please look me up. All right, maybe a little too much on that one. All right, Powell Books. I mean, everyone knows Powell's, largest independent new and used bookstore, so they claim, in the country. So what's next? Pixie Project, animal shelter. You can adopt pets there and take classes, I believe, and buy supplies. Nice looking spread there. Now this is, yeah, this one's a little harder to tell, but this is celebrating Tony Starlight, which is located on Madison Street. Hollywood-inspired supper club, kind of a crooner type situation, drinks, food, and fun entertainment. I probably first saw Tony Starlight when I was 19. I mean, he's been around a long time. He's over on the west side. I had fake ID. All right, moving on. Oh, yes. Okay. A little video. Kelly's house.
So this was a Royal Rosarian group that were reviewing all of the people participating in the torch parade. Okay, Kelly. Do you have any more? I think that's it.
That's it from the Rose Festival Porch Parade. Next, we're going to share an orchestral street performance.
While I get that set up, we're going to have Shauna. Are you?
I'm here.
Oh, fantastic.
Okay.
Hi, Shauna, this is. I'll introduce you quickly. I figured, Ed, maybe we could play the video after Shauna had a chance to talk about it a little bit.
I gotta find it. Go ahead.
Yeah, good. Yeah, I'm riffing for you. So Shauna Kais is with us, who is a violist at Portland Opera Orchestra, Eugene Symphony, and the Newport Orchestra or Symphony.
Yep.
So thank you very much for joining us today. I've seen some pictures and the video. It looks like a really cool event you guys put together.
It was so fun. And it felt so good to play music. And we were in the middle of rehearsals for one thing when the order came down on March 12th, and we haven't seen each other since then, really. And so we decided that I have a carpool that carpools down to Eugene together. And we thought we would get together and play, and we could do it if we were outside and the weather was decent. And then Ed thought, well, maybe we should close the street off so we have even more room. So it turned into a big party, and it was so much fun.
That is great.
Yeah.
And
you'll see that there's a trumpet player who's playing a violin part because he's in our carpool. So we didn't kick him out just because he doesn't play the violin, that kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I did want to read who was there that day. Ed provided me some names, so I want to give the players credit. So I have down here, first violin, Jamie Chinchurian.
Yep.
All right. Second violin, trumpet, Joe Klaus. First viola, you, Shauna Kais. Yay. Second viola, Dana Rosconi.
Yep.
And cello, bassoon, Ben Greenya.
Yep.
Did I get those names right?
The only one was Rakosny, but that's okay. And
Rakosny.
Dana and Ben are they're married as well. So
Oh, very cool.
you wouldn't know that from their last names, but yeah.
Well, Ed, how are we doing here? Is it time for a listen?
We're going to take a shot at it here, Joe, and let's, and then I'll try and get it on a share screen.
Very good. I hear something.
Yeah.
That's
Look,
great.
you're fine. I got your hair.
Shauna, good job.
Thank you. Somebody asked what piece it was we were playing, and it's a viola quintet by Mozart.
Beautiful.
So I'll just put it on the chat here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounded really good. We actually have a teeny bit. I thought I'd ask a question if that's all right.
Of course.
I was thinking this must be a tough time for musicians with so many places closed. I didn't know if people wanted to help or give or get involved. Are there any support groups or organizations that are helping out professional musicians during this time?
Well, I think the best place there a couple of ideas come to mind. One of them is to contact the local union. We're members of Local 99, the American Federation of Musicians, and they would certainly know how to help as best. And the other thing is to support the local art groups. If you had tickets for something, consider donating the tickets back instead of asking for a refund, or because I'm worried about some of the arts groups. It's going to be a long time before we're going to be able to play for audiences again in a full setting. So I don't know what's going to happen. So.
Yeah, that's a great point about. I know I had some tickets for shows, and they actually just rescheduled them for next year, so there wasn't really even an option for refund that I knew of.
Right, but are they going to be able to reschedule them? Really? I mean, do we know? I don't know.
Yeah.
From what I'm hearing, the word on the musician street is that nothing's going to happen for the whole next season. So we're looking at 21, 22 before we're really in a orchestral setting again. So, yeah, I don't know. But fortunately, we have chamber music, so that helps. The small groups, we can do stuff like that. Yeah.
And remember to put your viola case out front.
Open like a
Open.
hat.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah.
And prime it with a $20 bill.
That's right. I'll let you prime it, Ed.
All right, I'll prime it.
Pick him up on that.
That's
Well,
right.
thank you, Sean. I really appreciate that. And thanks for sharing and doing. We got some warm days ahead. Let's keep the music playing.
Yep, we're planning another one. So.
Oh, right
Good.
on. Ed,
Yep.
keep us posted. And then finally, we have some video of a celebration for Virginia Rankin, who turned 101 years old. And people came out en masse to celebrate her birthday, out of doors and drive-bys and unicycles and the whole bit. So we thought we'd end the meeting sharing video from Virginia's 101st birthday, and then probably have a closing remark from Tamara, and that'll be the end of the meeting.
Okay, we'll give it a shot here. Uh-oh.
Don't say uh-oh. There you go. It's a good sign.
Oh, is the sound turned off on this thing?
That's Rojos.
Yeah, there you go. Perfect.
Run it back a little bit.
All right.
Happy birthday, dear Virginia. Happy birthday to you.
Hi Virginia, it's your neighbor, the Unipiper, and I just wanted to wish you a happy 101st birthday. I hope this day was really special for you. I know it was a special day for a lot of your neighborhood who have come out to help you celebrate and be able to see each other again. So hope it's been a good day, and let's do this again next year, shall we?
Happy birthday, Virginia! From Spencer Sprocket. Ciao.
Happy birthday, Virginia. It's Moso the Cat Rapper. We appreciate you. We hope you have a great day.
Happy birthday, Virginia! Have many more!
Happy birthday, Virginia! Tiny says happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Virginia!
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Virginia. Happy birthday to you from Liz.
Happy birthday, Virginia!
Celebrating your 101st birthday today.
Happy birthday!
Hi, Virginia. Happy 101st birthday. Congratulations. Enjoy the day.
Happy birthday, Virginia! Congratulations for surviving all the things that this world probably threw at you in your 101 years.
Happy birthday, Virginia! Happy birthday, Virginia! Isabel Pug says happy birthday too.
Happy birthday, Virginia!
Happy birthday, Virginia!
Happy birthday, Virginia! Happy birthday, Virginia! Happy birthday. We're wishing you a happy birthday! Oh, what?
That concludes my portion. So back to you, Tamara.
That was wonderful. That was so fun. Thank you so much, Joe. That was great. I don't know if there's anything else for the order. Are there any outstanding questions for the board or for us members at this point? You see anything coming on the screen?
No, there's nothing on the screen.
Okay, well, on that note, stay safe, stay masked up when you're out, and hope to see you at our next gathering. Thank you very much for joining us. Good night.